Asimov, Zelazny, Dick, Vonnegut, Butler, Lem all wrote about time travel, some of the greatest science fiction writers of all time. Who's to say whose time travel novels were the best? Me? Hi, I'm Michael Leverts, and this is Fit to be Read. The criteria for this top 10 is a blend that considers which of these time travel books are my favorite and how strongly I recommend each book to satisfy a reader's thirst for time travel stories. I've arbitrarily decided to consider classics to be novels published before 1980, as that date best suits my purposes for this list. Here now are my top 10 classic science fiction time travel books. I can't just settle on 10, so we're going to have an honorable mention. We're going to start with ROADMARKS by Roger Zelazny, written in 1979. I was thinking that I was going to say that Zelazny is the most creative author on this list, and then I remembered the others that were on here, like Dick and Delaney. Roger Zelazny is a very creative writer, and ROADMARKS is very fun and a very entertaining and creative time travel novella. In ROADMARKS, there is a road that stretches through time, connecting the way past and the way future. Like a highway, there are exits, and these occur every few years. The story is told in two general settings. One is time spent on the road, and the other being any of the number of off-ramps to different times or possible histories that the protagonist, Red Durakeen, finds himself in. Part of the thrill is the assassins that are pursuing and trying to kill him, also lending a comedic element to the book. Standouts for me in the novel were Zelazny's character choices. This isn't to say that all of the characters were very well developed, but there were definitely standouts like humanoid behaving embodiment AI, sentient books of Baudelaire, and Walt Whitman. Extending further past 10, I'm going to go with a tie for the number 10 spot. I've got The Door into Summer by Robert Heinlein, published in 1956. I always acknowledge that Heinlein is a very talented writer because my next thought immediately is that he's often too self-indulgent for my taste. This is, to me, one of his more entertaining reads and much less heavy-handed or preachy than, say, Stranger in a Strange Land. There is a relationship that is not my cup of tea, but we aren't bludgeoned with it. In one sense, the story shines with the relationship of two characters, Dan and his cat Pete. Pete just wants to go through all of these doors, trying to find some warm summer temps. There are themes of getting even in the story, wish fulfillment, there's robots, cryogenic sleep, and time travel. And among the other titles on this top 10 list, this one's on here as a recommendation, really for it being a time travel book. Also tying at number 10 is Time and Again by Clifford Simak, published in 1950. Reading Simak is always a happy experience, and you can always expect him to deliver a sense of wonder. Like his more well-known novel City, Time and Again gets heavy into evolution and humanity themes, and gives us some robots as well. Asher Sutton disappears, transforms, traverses space and time, and he comes back with a message. Not everybody wants to hear that message. Others want to exploit it. There are implications on religion, war, and how folks might view humanity and the universe. Number 9 is also by Clifford Simak, and that's Ring Around the Sun, published in 1952. Jay Vickers is living in small-town USA in the future, all the way in 1977. Out of the norm for this otherwise normal world are the forever products, forever light bulbs, forever cars, razors that never need to be sharpened. What's going on? Where are these things coming from? And is it all part of some ploy to disrupt the economy? Vickers is approached and offered to be well compensated to look into all of this. He recognizes that it's a shady proposition and he refuses. But that's just the beginning, and then comes the fun stuff. Those who can shift into other versions of the world, mutants, and more. Number 8 is The Weapon Shop of Isher by A.E. VANVOGT, published in 1951. This fix-up of 3 VANVOGT magazine shorts is a rather compelling book and an interesting take on gun ownership and gun control. The main premise is that the Weapon Shop of Isher sells advanced tech guns, and it gives the people, the public, a means of which to keep the ruler of Isher in check and keeping full totalitarian rule at bay. This is a dystopian, corrupt government setting. The catch on gun ownership, though, is that the tech makes it so that the user cannot use the weapon unless there is a need for self-defense. I recommend this as much for the initial reading experience as I do for the book's ability to make you think about it quite a bit after. If it's useful to know, I'll add that the tone of the story and its characters, how men and women are written, is of the time that it was written. Number 7 is Star Maker, written by Olaf Stapledon and published in 1937. This is a fascinating and emotionally immersive reading experience. The general idea is that a man's consciousness floats off into the universe. Once he gets his bearings, so to speak, he navigates to other inhabited worlds. He also learns to mesh or pair his consciousness with that of another and eventually others to share experiences. The take on time travel here is unique, as it's the consciousness that's able to travel to different moments in time to observe civilizations, other species, intelligences who have made it, and countless many that have not. This is an easy book to recommend to anybody who likes the idea of a narrative that presents such an exploration of the mind and consciousness, and difficult to recommend because it reads more like a journal entry or a fictional academic paper on an account of the history of the universe than it does like a book. Number 6 is Now Wait for Last Year by Philip K. Dick, published in 1966. This entry from Dick is ugly beautiful. It's ugly because of the drugs and elements of abusive relationships, suicide, and it's beautiful because it looks directly at those things without a one-sided judgment, instead opening the door for each to be examined. Similar to much of Dick's other work, he presents a lot of questions or questionable things, and it leaves it for the reader to contemplate from their own experience and perspective. Oh, I guess I should also mention there is interstellar war, questionable allegiances, and time travel. I mentioned drugs, right? The drug sends you through time. You could stop taking the drug, but the withdrawal is likely to kill you. Number 5 is Kindred by Octavia Butler. This was published in 1979. It's been more than 20 years since I've read this. My memories remind me that I loved this story of a white woman in modern day being transported back to slavery era in the South and forming a connection with the son of a ruthless slave owner. I was fortunate to read this as part of an African American literature class in college, as it was my first introduction to the work of Octavia Butler. There are quite a few Butler novels on my top science fiction books video, as well as 2 Butler short stories on my top 10 science fiction short stories video, so you can check that out on my channel also. Number 4 is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, published in 1895. Everybody is surely aware of this classic. The Time Machine is the most legendary of time travel novels. Wells' story spans almost a million years into the future, all the way to 1975. Just kidding. But yeah, about 800,000 years. Most interesting in the story is the time traveler's telling of a future dying Earth and the evolution of the world and the 2 races, the Eloi and the Morlocks. Number 3 is Sirens of Titan, published in 1959, written by Kurt Vonnegut. Vonnegut toys with time in Titans. In Titans, Winton Rumsford, a superhuman of sorts, traverses time and space due to what's called materialization. Think wormholes. He also sees into the past and the future. There's definitely vibes of Vonnegut's more well-known classic Slaughterhouse-5 and the idea of being unstuck in time. Sirens also features a Tralfamadorian, the same fictitious aliens that are in Slaughterhouse-5. In Sirens, America's richest and maybe most egotistical man is Malachi Constant, who meets or is summoned by Rumsford, and events transpire to bring him to Mars, Mercury, and the Saturnian moon, Titan. The novel is rich in satire. Vonnegut is brilliant in presenting the serious in tandem with the dark humor, and leans into a favorite Vonnegut theme or mantra: accept that which you cannot change and have the recognition and courage to change that which you can. Number 2 is Empire Star by Samuel R. Delany, published in 1966. You should check out The Adventures of Comet Joe. Joe receives a message that he must deliver to Empire Star. When we, the readers, meet Joe, he is a simplex mind. In some ways, simplex is a way of saying simple-minded. In his endeavor to deliver his message, he is sort of tutored along the way to think in a multiplex way by an interesting supporting cast. There is Lump, a multiplex linguistic intelligence that is by his side for much of this journey. There is Nitai Lee, a poet who only visits briefly, and San Severina, who is integral to Joe's development and appears to him in different forms or versions in different spots in her life. The time travel in this is wildly interesting and is best left to be part of your eventual reading experience. There are also the beings of great power who, if you're around them, evoke from you a powerful and painful sadness. The metaphor present in this novella reached me, connected with me in a way few books ever had. I would expect some readers to have that experience with this book, and others probably won't. Upon reread, this is my favorite Samuel R. Delany book. And my #1 classic science fiction time travel story is The End of Eternity by Isaac Asimov, published in 1955. Andrew Harlan is an Eternal, and his star is on the rise. The Eternals are technicians who tinker with time to put humanity on the right path, or at least the path that they deem to be the safest plotted course. Of course, this calls to mind considerations of whether there is such a thing as knowing what is best for humanity. Asimov explores these themes a lot with robots in his other science fiction. Here he does it with these time tinkerers. The Eternals are generally not affected by the course corrections that they make to the past, at least not directly, as they sit outside of the normal timeline. They are not immune to office politics, however. They get through time using kettles that travel through these elevators of a sort, and they can go forward and backward in time. There are times in the future that they don't access, that they can't access, and they don't exactly understand why, but more on that when you read the book. This is a fun and thought-provoking novel. You can find a full review of this book on my channel. Thank you for watching today. I'm Michael Levers, and this is Fit to be Read.